All right, Council, we are live on YouTube now, so I will call the meeting to order. I'll remind Council to please disclose of any pecuniary interest at the appropriate time. And we'll go to the minutes of the previous council meeting of May 31st, 2021. Need a mover and a seconder to receive and file those minutes. Moved by Councillor Westgate, seconded by Councillor Morris. Any questions or comments, errors or omissions on those? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. We will go to scheduled meetings and events. All of our upcoming meetings are there for everyone to see. Does anyone have any questions or comments about that? We don't have any special meetings coming up, so we will go on to councillors' commitments and items. Does any councillors have any commitments that they like to add to the calendar? Okay, we will go around the room and do councillors' items. I'm going to start with Councillor Westgate today. Do you have anything for council today?
No, just that curb, Andrew. They put topsoil in there and it washed out. So they're either gonna have to fix the curb or put sod down, maybe would say.
Yeah, we were just gonna give the topsoil and see if we could get away with not having a heavy rain, but of course, since that time we've had at least 2 good downpours, so we might have to go to sod. No big deal. We'll get it fixed. At last resort, we will fix the curb, but we're gonna try to.
Well, the curb's not right, so it probably should be fixed, but it doesn't matter whether the water runs over it, as long as it doesn't take stuff with it.
That's right.
That's all I had, really.
Okay, and Councillor White, do you have anything for council?
Nope.
Nothing today. And Councillor Morris.
Just wanted to thank Andrew for putting the gravel on the shoulder of Confed. It's making things a lot safer. Thank you very much.
Great. Always good to hear good things. I do have a not so good announcement. We did receive news that we were not accepted as part of phase 2 from the Ministry of Infrastructure on the gas expansion in the rural areas through the provincial program. Apparently they had a lot of other applications and we did not make the cut. So I don't know what council's next steps should be on this. We have requested a delegation with the minister for AMO, and we can ask what our next options are and perhaps get Enbridge back at the table and see if there's not something else, some kind of collaboration that we can do to try to get that project underway. But I don't know. It's not welcome news, but it is what it is. We're going to keep fighting to get that expansion and to get gas out to Warwick Township one way or the other. So it's just not going to come as quickly as we had hoped. And that's all I have for council. We'll go on to staff items. We have a verbal update from Teresa Kletchen on the capital campaign and introduction of the campaign chairs.
Thanks, Mayor Romboats. So I'm very excited tonight to be able to introduce our co-chairs.
Rhonda, get here.
Oh, that's funny. For the East Lambton Community Complex Capital Campaign. As you know, we did complete the feasibility study, and upon review of that and other community members, we were very fortunate to secure 2 members from our community who are very community minded with leadership skills and have made me feel very welcome to the community. And so our campaign co-chairs are George and Rhonda Null. And I'd like to, they're on the screen with us today. Normally we'd be doing this in person, but welcome George and Rhonda. And if you'd like to say a few words on behalf of the East Lambton Community Complex campaign.
Sure. Well, thank you very much, Teresa.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
I'll start.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay. So we just want to say, hello, Mayor Jackie and council members. It came as a very big surprise to us that we were chosen. We were honored by the selection committee. I was a little bit shocked at first as co-chairs, but we are very pleased that, the council members, as well as, some members of the town have chosen us. And we know that this project is a big project for East Lambton and will be for years to come. And so we are thrilled to be a part of it.
Yeah, and it was nice working with Teresa and Amanda right off the get-go and being kind of brought into it, like almost becoming ownership of this and looking at plans and getting right into the campaign thing. So that was a good thing for us to see that everybody's eager and ready to go. And we're ready as well.
Yeah, and so the next part of our plan, we've already met with Amanda and Teresa, and we've narrowed down some of the people that we would like on the selection committee. So, or not on the selection committee, but on the campaign leadership team. And so next step is to start giving them phone calls, tell them what it's all about, and recruit them. So yeah, good.
Well, we are very, very excited to have you guys on board, and we know that you'll do a fantastic job for our community. This is such an important project for our community, and I know everybody's very excited about it. And we have all the confidence in the world that you guys will do a fantastic job, and we look forward to working with you.
We'll
Well,
try
thank
not
you very
letting anyone
much, yeah.
down.
We'll endeavor for a successful campaign, that's for sure.
For sure. Yes, it's very exciting and a big initiative that we've taken on here. And we have a goal of $2 million. And I know with this community that we can reach that goal. We just have to all work together. And I know you guys would be the perfect people to lead us to that.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rhonda. Thanks, George, very much for joining us tonight. Very much appreciated. And I look forward to working with you on this campaign.
Yeah, we look forward to it as well.
Keep up the good work, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a
I'm sure
good
you do a
night.
good job.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
So that's some good news tonight, Council. I am going to skip over our delegation because that starts at 6:30. So we're going to skip down to 10. We don't have anything on accounts today, so we'll go to the non-action correspondence. And due to some technical issues that we had at our last meeting, we ended up having to move some of the correspondence onto this agenda, so it's quite extensive. Is there anything in the non-action correspondence that council would like to highlight?
I just had 6:31 marked down, but you've already talked about it, and whether we could apply again or whatever.
Well, I think we would like to reach out to Enbridge perhaps and ask them to attend another future meeting. It would be good to have them at the table and see if there is anything that can be done to move that project forward.
Should we
Anything else?
also reach out to the minister and see if there's another intake that we can get some money out of?
We can always try. Like I said, we do have it on our delegation request, so we'll see how that goes, if we get a delegation or not. And if not, perhaps we can write a letter on behalf of the residents of Warwick Township. It is very disappointing considering that they did the announcement for the program in our municipality. So very disappointing. Anything else from the non-action correspondence? We do need a motion to receive and file the remainder of that correspondence. Moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Westgate. All in favor? That is carried. And there's one action item here. I don't know how we want to deal. Is that, what kind of action is required from that, Amanda?
Thanks, Mayor Rhonda. I believe the board is, the Conservation Authority Board is looking for support for the resolution that is noted BD 2144, so noted on the end of page 2 of the letter. I will note that there are 2 other correspondence items. Oh, sorry, it's actually on the bottom of page 3. Thanks, Heather. The bottom of page 3. And there are 2 other correspondence items which do relate to this. one from Oil Springs and one from Brook Alvinston, with a proposal for an amendment from Brook Alvinston that asks the board to consider adding a membership from, I believe it's Ontario Federation of Agriculture, to the board, and Oil Springs has supported it. So I add that for your information in case that was missed in our other 40 correspondence.
It's quite a big board to begin with. What do you think, Councillor Westgate? You're a member for that board. Sorry, you're muted.
I think there should be somebody from the farm community on it. We start talking about drains and stuff. And I don't think this motion is making the board any bigger. We're actually taking one off it.
Okay. So do we have a mover to support the resolution from Brook Alvingston then? That would be Councillor Westgate, seconded by Councillor Morris. All in favor? And then I'm assuming we still need to support this motion, or is it the one will cancel out the other?
We'll have to support this
So-
motion no matter what, I think. Or not.
We could, if the mover and seconder are agreeable, we could count the previous motion taken as approval of the existing motion on page 3 with an amendment similar to the one from Brook Alvinston to add a representative member from the OFA, if they're agreeable.
Yeah.
I'm seeing
Yes.
nods shaking, so we'll take that, Mayor Rumbuck.
All right, that's great. All in favor of that, then. That is carried. Thank you. We're going to move on to staff reports. The first one is the current municipal service levels and COVID-19 impacts. We need a mover and a seconder to have that report on the floor. Moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Morris. Any questions or comments, errors or omissions from that report? Anything that you would like to highlight, Amanda?
I would highlight that the municipal office is planning to reopen for public access just in the near future. And it would have been this Monday if it had not been for our unrelated IT issues that we've been experiencing. So we tentatively have booked for the following Monday, the 21st. It will be dependent on when our IT service is restored completely, because there will be a bit of catch-up work to do, but we're targeting Monday, and at this time, I believe that is feasible.
That's great information. I know our staff is looking forward to seeing people in person again. There will be stipulations going along with that only one person or family could be allowed in the office at a time for obvious reasons. We don't want to overcrowd that area, but I'm sure the people will understand that, and it'll be great to get back out into the public again. All right, we need all in favor of receiving and filing that report. That is carried. Thank you. We'll move on to B, which is the long-term facility needs and considerations. Do we have time for this before our delegation? I'm sure it looks like we do. Okay. How do we want to proceed on this one, Council? Staff is looking for direction. Councillor White.
I think they put together an excellent report, and the CAO has done a great job. I think we should move forward with some discussion on it, for sure.
Okay. I'm open to discussion. This has been something that's been kind of sitting on the back burner for a bit, but Amanda, do you want to help us out with this one? Do you have anything that you'd like to speak to?
Sure. So I'm sure Council can recall the history regarding this proposed or potential study. And as you know, it was approved at the budget process. I made a presentation about long-term facility needs and potential opportunities for long-term savings, certainly not short-term, and proposed this study. At the time, I had estimated that this study would be no less than or no more than $10,000. However, we found through a quote process that it is a little bit more than that, coming in at 13,000. So I wasn't sure. I got the sense from council at the outset that the $10,000 mark seemed a little bit high for some members. So I thought I would, rather than using my delegated authority, I would bring it back to council for consideration. It's not a big difference, and certainly regardless, I do think regardless of what these results of the study showed, the data that would be provided would be helpful for the municipality moving forward in considering its options, but also understanding things like the market value of our existing properties, more about the condition of them. So I don't think, in my opinion, that it would be money not well spent. But that being said, I thought it was prudent to bring it back to council for more discussion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Westgate.
Oh, you have 12,000 here, Amanda. Is it 12 or is it 13?
Do I?
The
My
first cost of the
apologies.
study is 12,000. Plus,
My apologies, Councillor Westgate. It is an error. It is 13. So an additional $1,000 from my report, and it is 13 plus HST. And I apologize for that. I'm sorry, I made a typo, it looks like. That's the only one though.
Good catch, Councillor Westgate.
there's a lot about this that I can't see happening. But whether we should have the information on it, make sure that's not, it shouldn't go, I'm not so sure.
Councillor Morris.
Amanda, how relevant will this information be if we don't do anything with it for 3 years?
That's a good question. Well, I think it would be relevant, but I can't give an estimation of how much, right? But things that we would use this data for immediately, regardless, would be making a decision on the salt shed / wash bay, which we do have budgeted right now for the Warwick Garage. That expense is currently budgeted at $1.2 million. So there's some impact immediately on that expense potentially. Similarly, there are some repairs slated for the Watford Garage budgeted this year, in particular a fence all the way around, and then a number of more, I'll say like operational, like paint and roof, that kind of replacement. What it would do in the long term, say over that 3-year period, would be really guide us down a path of where we think we'd be going. And without doing the study, you would be making decisions. Say if you chose to go ahead with the salt shed and wash bay at the Warwick Garage without doing this study, then you may be making a decision not knowing the full costs that will be forthcoming at the Watford Garage, for example. In terms of, and I don't mean just the tangible cost of keeping the property up to date, I also mean the costs associated with, like, maybe the space isn't adequate or useful in the long term, so you're looking at an addition at that site, and then you're into, you know, this $1.2 million at Warwick plus the additional. So really, it's hard for me to quantify the tangible cost, but by making the decision to do or not to do a study of this nature, I think you're really at the same time guiding the decision for both of that property, the Warwick Garage, the Watford Garage, and I'd even lump in the potential of maybe the Watford Fire Station as well.
Any other questions? Or if we have a motion, that would be great too. Councillor White.
I move that we do go ahead with the study to really understand. I think it'll give us a good perspective on the full cost of our operations, probably how it could be, how it is now, and how it may be more efficient in another form. So I would move that.
Okay, do we have a seconder to that motion? Councillor Morris.
I will second the motion because it's just a study. I'm not committing to any changes. I feel it I don't want to spend a whole bunch of money to build a garage to put the backhoe in. How much will it really deteriorate if it doesn't get in the garage? I need a little more information, but the study hopefully will give it that. So I will second the motion.
Okay, thank you. I agree. I think it's one of those things that maybe this term of council isn't ready to bite off, but I would like to know the repercussions if we make big decisions about building a new shed. We want to make sure that we're making the right decisions and not just a patchwork or small Band-Aid decision that's going to cost us more in the long run. Any other comments on that one?
My only problem was the person that discussed this doesn't know the community like we do. And there was a lot of things in there that I didn't agree with. Like even like saving money by moving our township closer to Watford. It's in the center of the township right now. We have trucks going every way from there. And I believe there's enough room there. We just need more bays and another in the salt shed, but we can do the study, but I hope they take everything into consideration.
Amanda, would you like to speak to that?
If I may, thanks, Mayor and Councillor Westgate. That's a great point. I absolutely hear you. I think we heard some concerns from our staff team too about consultation on the completed service delivery review about exactly that, the locational benefits and the perceived operational challenges. One of the things that is in the scope of the study is to quantify that for us. So we will look at like time lost, time gained, the impact of that additional driving, how it could impact, how likely it is to impact. So I hear you, and I think that's one of the intended reasons for this. It's going to, hopefully, we'll get some more information through the study.
And with traffic studies and stuff too, with the landfill there, it's busy enough in that area.
That's a good point. There's also the whole community side of it that Councillor Westgate mentioned. You know, you don't want to have everything centralized just in Watford. There's a whole township that we have to think about. And I know part of the discussion with the amalgamation was that, Councillor Westgate, you were around for that. And I think that was probably a big consideration for Warwick when you did the amalgamation, was that would remain out in the township.
Yeah, we had to bring the whole community together, and by putting it all in Watford doesn't do that.
Great. Lots to consider, but I think that's kind of the point of the study. And will there be some consultation with staff and with council as a part of that, Amanda?
So at this time in the current scope, there wasn't direct consultation with council within the scope that we've outlined, but direct consultation with our staff team, particularly in public works, yes, that is built in the scope.
Great. All in favor of that motion then? That is carried. Thank you, council. I think we have time for C, which is, there is a resolution there for council's consideration or recommendation.
I have a question.
Sure.
How many years is it for, and do they have an option on the last year?
2-year lease
So-
term with a renewable option for 1 additional year is what I'm seeing.
Oh, okay, I
That's
must have
correct.
missed that, sorry.
No problem.
I will move it.
Okay, and seconded by Councillor White. Any other questions or concerns about that one? Councillor Westgate.
We have it in the agreement that we can take the land back within 6 months, a year?
Yes,
Okay,
we also passed a provision related to fertilizer use this time as well. So they will be built into a revised agreement. With, yes, being able to take back the agreement. Sorry, Jerry, it's actually not related what I said to what you said, but both of those 2 clauses will be included, yes.
with the fertilizer, did we say they cannot put the human waste on it? Okay. Good,
Good. All right, all in favor of that? That is carried, thank you. And we'll go to proposed Watford settlement boundary adjustment. I think we're gonna leave that one until after our delegation. Is that advisable? Amanda's nodding her head like, yep. Do we have, I'm gonna come back to D, so do we have time for E? That's a progress report on the East Lambton Community Complex. We just need a motion to receive and file that report. Moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Westgate. Thank you. And there's some pictures there of the site. Anything you'd like to highlight, Teresa?
No, not at this time. I just thought perhaps you'd enjoy the pictures.
Yeah, no, it's great. I love that. Just keep them coming because it's always good to have that record of the progression there.
it's nice to, or it's different to see how different people do stuff. I would never do it like they are.
Well,
I would never have that much footing open, or I'd be pouring concrete the day I started digging.
everyone has different ways of doing things.
I know.
All right, so we just need all in favor of receiving and filing that report. That is carried. Thank you, Council. We are 1 minute to our delegation, so I'm going to go back up to that. And we're going to welcome Mary Lou Tanner from NPG Planning Solutions in for a public meeting on the official plan update. Hi, Mary Lou, how are you tonight?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. Hi, how are you, Ken? Good to
Doing
see
well.
you both.
Doing well, thank you.
Good. So as part of the process to update the Township of Warwick's official plan, the township is holding this public meeting to present the feedback collected on the official plan to date. And the summary of the process so far is available for review on the township website, just so that people know. A decision about proposed official plans will not be made by council at this public meeting. The purpose of the meeting is to hear a summary of the feedback to date and provide a public forum for the discussion of the official plan update. In order to be eligible to appeal the eventual decision of the Township of Warwick Council to the local planning appeal tribunal, a person or public body must make an oral submission at a public meeting or make a written submission to the Township of Warwick before a decision is made. If one does make an oral or written submission at a public meeting, they can be added to as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the tribunal. I'm going to ask our clerk the method of giving public notice of the meeting and the date that the notice was given.
Thank you, Mayor Rumbouts. Public notice of the meeting was given on Monday, June 7th, both electronically on our website and our social media, and also was placed in the newspaper that week, appearing in both papers on June 10th. I will note that as this is an additional meeting, not one that is statutory, it did not need to meet a prescribed timeline, so it was additionally completed.
Okay, thank you. And I will turn the meeting over to Mary Lou, who's going to give us a summary of the public feedback.
Thank you very much, Mayor Rombouts and members of council. We provided you with a summary memo. I apologize, there's a thunderstorm going on in my part of the world.
No problem.
We provided you with an update memo on the feedback that we've received. So we are required to circulate the draft of the official plan update to agencies that are stipulated by the province of Ontario. So all agencies did receive the update, and they were requested to provide their feedback and given an 8-week period to review the update. There was one agency that responded and had no comments, the French Language School Board. We did receive written comments from the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority, as well as the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. The second conservation authority, Osable Maitland, did not comment on the official plan, although they were circulated it. I think the feedback from the agencies has been very helpful. You'll see in the summary document in our responses, particularly related to the Conservation Authority, there are areas where we have suggested we will include changes per their request, and other areas where we will not. And generally the areas where we will not is because we have aligned your plan to the county's official plan. And there's a natural heritage system, which is the counties, and then there's natural hazards, which are the conservation authorities. And we've kept those distinct. And where the conservation authority would ask us to blend them, we've declined to do so because the county official plan keeps them separate. So that's generally the nature of the differences in the conservation authority comments. In terms of the OMAFRA comments, they're very minor, generally technical in nature. So we're recommending some changes to the wording to align to their comments. And then we received one set of comments from a member of the public regarding the proposed land swap. And that is the extent of the comments that we have received from the public. I'm happy to take questions from members of council and any members of the public who are here.
Okay, Amanda, do we have members of the public on the call? That I don't see anybody, but
It does appear, yes, we do have one member joining us. If they have comments, they'd be welcome to make some.
okay, so this is the time in the meeting that we would have comments from members of the public. I don't see any questions or comments from the public, so we'll move on to questions from council. Councillor Morris.
Yes, how did you get along with the discussion about the property being taken off people's farms from the 402 and the CN regarding the 38 hectares left?
So thank you very much, Councillor Morris. In the end, there really isn't an impact for the following reasons. First is those farms existed prior to the adoption of the plan, so they become what's called non-complying. Nothing really hinges on it in terms of them having to be 38 hectares. It's only in the instance where somebody is trying to create a new farm lot that it needs to be 38 hectares. And in that circumstance, individuals whose property was separated by a provincial highway or a railway line through the taking of some of the land, they likely would not be able to sever into 2 farm parcels. But that's the only impact that 38 hectares would have.
Councillor Morris, follow up?
Well, that's my biggest concern. We've taken a large percentage of our township that is covered by the 402. It's a big stretch, and the CN, and now you're telling me I have to tell these people that they can't have a surplus farm dwelling because they're only 36 hectares?
Thank you. So the surplus farm dwelling severance only applies in the case of a consolidation. And that means one person is buying 2 farms. The minimum farm parcel of 38 hectares is when you're creating a new farm parcel lot. It's a very fine difference. I wouldn't see the surplus farm dwelling as severance as being unavailable to someone who's consolidating, because consolidating is a good thing for many people. So that's the way I would interpret those provisions on surplus farm dwelling. We can go back and take another look and make sure that that's very clear in the wording of the policies, so that people who come after Ken and I are clear on the intent.
Because it's very important to these people that they have the same rights as anybody else in the township, because they had no say in the 402 or the CN going through. And like, I hate to see them not being able to make a surplus farm dwelling severance and only having 36 hectares. Because a lot of those farms of the 402, they took 9, 10 acres, or what is it, hectares, 4 hectares or whatever. So you have to have something in there to protect them. We have to have some wording that makes it clear that they are allowed to do it like anybody else in the township.
So we'll double check that wording. I think it's fine, but we will double check it.
Thank you.
And when we come back next time, we'll have a definitive response.
So just to clarify, so that I understand, so a farm that's maybe 96 acres because of the 402 cutting it off can still severance off a surplus dwelling?
So the surplus farm dwelling severance is only in the case of consolidation. So where somebody purchases another farm. So it's a very, very narrow opportunity. And when you're consolidating, you're making the farm operations bigger. So I believe the wording covers off, because surplus farm dwellings are one set of policies, the minimum size are another set, and they don't really intersect, but we will double check that.
Okay. Councillor Westgate?
I've been told that the province had a policy of putting, if farms abutted, that they put them together on one property. And I know we've had some severance of at least 2 in my time where we separated them back up because the farmer wanted them separated back out. How does that work if you have a property that is put together, but it has 2 separate tax rolls, 2 separate deeds, was bought from 2 separate people? How do they go back together, or can they get them apart again?
Thank you. That's a great question. And funnily enough, I was researching this last week on another matter. So there is an option for them. So what happens in Ontario under the Planning Act is, if you generally, there are some exceptions, but generally if you buy the property next door, what happens is under the Act, they automatically merge the titles. So it becomes one larger parcel. What is available in the provincial policy statement is the ability to have a severance for legal or technical reasons. And you can do that type of severance. So what happens is you take a very small piece of land and sever it to add to the other parcels. So if it's, let's say it's 100 acres and they're 50 and 50, you take a sliver of land at, the old property line and do a consent to give it to the other property, and you break the merge title. It's a technical approach, but it can absolutely be done.
But if they're already merged, you can. So if you had, I think the one person that I was talking to lately had 50 acres and 75 that were put together.
Yeah, so it would have to be a consent, but the consent is appropriate for legal or technical reasons. And when the consent or the severance is approved, it breaks the merge.
Okay, so there's two different tax, right? So they should better take it back apart again.
They can absolutely apply for consent for legal or technical reasons, because they merged and they want them unmerged.
Okay.
What I was told is if you are purchasing the land beside you, you're better off to purchase it and add another name to the purchase. Like, so for us, we have a farm name that would purchase that property, but we would add maybe my husband's name onto it to keep it a separate roll number, a separate property. Just in case you ever wanted to sell it later on and you didn't want to have that legal expense of trying to separate it out again. It's easier to do it that way than have to go back around afterwards and try to get them separated out again.
But they had
Not
no
that
idea
you
they
can't-
were, they had no idea they were put together, Jackie. They put
This
them
Yeah.
in two
was
different
done without their knowledge.
tax bills.
A good lawyer, when you purchase a farm, will tell you that. It's kind of on the lawyer, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, planners, but I know our lawyer at the time that we purchased said, I recommend that you do it this way to keep them separate, but
That's
Correct.
entirely correct. And if the two properties are in the same name, they automatically merge. So what the mayor has suggested is a way to ensure that the merge doesn't happen.
I'm here to second that answer.
it is frustrating when it happens and you're not aware of it, but there is ways of doing it, but I've been told it's very expensive and time consuming and a bit of a pain. So you're best off to keep the two properties separate if
But if
possible.
they're already together, these, the ones I'm talking about.
Yes, unfortunately.
They did my two 50-acre farms and the family had no say in it. They just went together as one roll on the roll and we had no say about it and knew nothing about it.
That is the way it occurs, yeah.
If it's owned by the same person. So like one property could be owned by Adrian and I, and then one just by Adrian or vice versa, just to keep it separate, just to keep it clean. And I would propose that everybody if you're purchasing land, that you make sure that happens in the
But
future,
20,
but it doesn't
30
change the fact that it happens like that.
20 or 30 years ago it happened and
Yeah.
That's right.
they had no idea.
Any other questions or comments from council tonight? Or staff? Okay. I'm going to, I think if there's no other questions, then I can conclude the public meeting on the Township of Warwick official plan update and thank all of our members of the public and Mary Lou and Ken for joining us tonight. Members of the public are welcome to continue to submit any further comments on the proposed official plan update to the website or to officialplan@warwicktownship.ca. And we look forward to the next steps in this process.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, council, we're going to go down to discuss the next part of this, and I'm going to ask our guests maybe to stick around in case we have some questions on it. We're gonna, what's the number here? Proposed D, proposed Watford settlement boundary adjustments. How does council want to deal with this? I believe staff's looking for some direction from council. Councilor Morris.
I find this 40 acres in this farm absolutely no use to us for residential. Where it goes is, I think, a little bit maybe irrelevant. But having it there, we know the sewers is going to be a problem. We know storm management is going to be a problem. I think we need to move ahead and get it changed.
Okay, any other comments? I like the idea of council having the say on where it goes. As opposed to it being a developer-led thing where they have the say. That's me personally. So do we have a motion on the floor, Councillor Morris, or?
I think we should table this and bring it back maybe in a month. Right now, I have no other place where I can say this is where it should go. But I think we need to keep it open that we're ready to do it if we foresee we need to. I see absolutely no use having 40 use of residential zoned property in that corner, but I think we need to maybe discuss further where it goes. So I motion to table it.
Okay, do we have any question or comments from staff on this before we, Amanda?
My only comment, Councillor and Mayor, is just that following the information presentation we received from Mary Lou and Ken at our last regular council meeting on this topic, the impacted landowner north of Confederation Line has contacted the municipality, right, inquiring about this process, this timeline, and these costs. And so while I appreciate the deferral, council has absolutely the right to do that, and we're happy to bring back any additional information council needs. The individual that kind of instigated this request is looking to understand timeline, and given the presentation from Mary Lou and Ken, does have expressed to me anyway some concerns about timeline for the entire process. So was very keen to understand, you know, where council was at so that they could then review their process and their timeline for their future plans. So I just want to flag that for council as well.
That's good to know. Ken, did you have a comment?
Yeah, maybe I'll start out by just making sure that I understand Councillor Morris's comment earlier, and I just want to confirm what I think I hear that you're saying is that your concern is that there may be other locations that might be more preferable that these rights that the settlement boundary swap could go to. Am I correct?
Pretty well, Ken. I'm not really too sure where it should go, but it shouldn't be there.
Okay, and that's actually very helpful, because this would be my comment. I think what and certainly if I'm drifting, Ms. Gubbles can correct me, but what I get from her report is she's asking for direction from you in terms of how you wish to proceed. And I think one of the options you have rather than table is to make the decision to leave it to an applicant, because you are not actually specifying what applicant, and by virtue of that, you're not specifying what location. What I think you're saying by doing that is we have this ability as the township, we have this settlement boundary on our own land that we're willing to consider moving. You have to make an applicant would have to engage the township and council to convince it that, okay, we would initiate the process. And so by virtue of making the decision to put it back to an applicant, you're not ending the discussion. What you're saying is we're open to anyone coming forward, and for us to then be considering their ability to initiate an application. I think the key here, though, is that they are the ones who are initiating the application, because then the risk and the cost is then put back on them. I might have maybe joined a couple of issues together with what I'm hearing. I don't know if you want to jump in some more, Amanda, but that would be sort of my take on maybe that a way forward as well.
No, Ken, I think that's an accurate assessment. Thank you.
So essentially you're saying that if someone has a plan for a residential area that they think would be better suited for residential, then they would come to council and say, yes, this is what we'd like to do. And then council work with them. Councillor Westgate, did you have a comment?
Yeah, so that's why that was put residential in the first place. There was a plan that was being developed to put that into a gated community. But you're right, Councillor Morris, that's much, it should be industrial over there, not residential. I think we should go ahead and get it moved. And where we were talking about is an ideal place to move it because it works good for sewers, for our stormwater and everything. I guess my question is, the land where it's being moved from, could that be left as industrial? I don't think so, but could it?
Through your worship, and Mary Lou can correct me if I get this wrong, but as I understand it, no, because remember, a land swap is a no net increase, which means that if you're taking it from one spot, you're giving it to the other. So one side loses, one side gains, but the overall is unchanged. So the site that you'd be taking it from would go back to being agriculture. And it would be a different ball game if you were talking about keeping the site in the settlement area and just changing it to industrial and then suddenly wanting to have another area become residential, then that's a net increase, which is a whole new ball game.
Just thought I'd try it.
It can't hurt to ask. I mean, it would be great, but I think that it has to be approved that you have so much industrial land and so much commercial and so much residential through the county official plan, does it not?
Through your worship, I believe the provisions related to amount of industrial land come from the PPS, if I'm not mistaken. But yes, you are correct. There are certain requirements through the PPS that you have to be in conformity to. I think what happens is the way the county has done it is we basically filtered them down. So they're also in the county plan. I'll give you an A for effort, Councillor Westgate. That was a very good try.
Any other comments from council? So given the information that we've received from staff, do we still want to table this, or is this, do we want to just leave it open for developers to come to council with recommendation or with requests? Councillor Morris and then Councillor Westgate.
Mary Lou, with this, if we don't do anything right now, but we all want to move this 40 acres out of that farm, does that affect our work right now on the official plan?
Through you, Mayor Rumboats, no, it doesn't. The official plan is coming forward in July for adoption. This would be a separate process because it's a county official plan amendment.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Westgate.
I would like to leave it open for somebody to come to us and we would work with them if they decided that they wanted to move that residential area.
Okay. Are we good with that? Do we want a motion reflecting that, Amanda?
Great question. Yes, Mayor Rumboats. I think in the absence of any contrary decision, I think a receive and file motion for this information report would be sufficient. So essentially, council would be taking no action, which would mean that everything remains status quo. And I think that would be perfectly appropriate if that's what you wish to do.
And any developers who are interested are welcome to come to council and discuss their interests or their plans. Okay, so we need a motion to receive and file if that's council's wishes. Councillor Morris, seconded by.
I make the motion.
Okay, thank you. And that's seconded by Councillor Westgate. Any other comments or anything on that? All right, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you so much. And I don't think we have any other major planning things that Mary Lou or Ken need to be here for, do we? Then I don't want to keep you guys. You're welcome to stay and but I'm sure you're anxious to get on with your evening. So thank you very much for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night, guys. We're going to go down to F, which is Culvert 52 Tender Award Recommendation. Need a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Councillor White. Seconded by Councillor Westgate. Questions or comments on that one? All in favor? That is carried, and we'll go down to committee minutes. The first one is minutes of the Development Committee meeting of June 7th. Moved by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor Westgate. All in favor of receiving and filing those? Thank you. Minutes of the Parks and Recreation Committee meeting of June 9th. Moved by Councillor Westgate, seconded by Councillor Morris. Councillor Morris, you chaired that meeting. Do you have anything that you'd like to highlight from that?
No, Teresa made an excellent report, and we're very pleased to move along. She heard our concern about save the trees, so I think everything else was hunky-dory.
Great. All right, all in favor of receiving and filing those minutes? That is carried. And the minutes of the special council meeting of June 10th. Moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Westgate. All in favor? That is carried. We'll go down to new business. There's a petition for drainage work for the Hagel drain. Councillor Morris, you're moving the recommendation?
Yes, I move the recommendation.
Okay, and seconded by Councillor Westgate. Any questions or concerns? All in favor? That is carried. And a petition for the drainage works for the Eastman Van Art drain. There's a recommendation there, moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Westgate. All in favor of proceeding with that? That is carried. And we are at the point in our meeting where we will be going into closed session. We just need a mover and a seconder to do that. Moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Morris. All in favor? To those of you that is carried. So to those of you watching on YouTube, thank you for joining us tonight. And we will be coming into open session just to close out the meeting. So I wish